As you already read by the title, I'm about to get into the portion of my video where I talk about how being a marriage and family therapist has influenced my dating and what I've learned about my dating patterns since being in grad school. What I'll start with is saying, if you are someone who knows me and also someone who has dated me or talked to me, whatever, I am not bashing you. I'm not coming for you. I'm not talking smack about you. I'm talking about me, my experiences, what I've learned. So I really hope no one is offended by anything I'm about to say. And if you are, reach out to me because you have my contact information, or maybe you don't because some of y'all are blocked and for good reason. But if you're not blocked, reach out to me, we'll talk. I don't want there to be any bad blood. So let's start with my very first dating experience. I was 14 years old and at that point in life, that was like the talk of school. Like everybody was talking about who they were talking to, who they'd gone out on a date with, what they'd done with their little dates. And I was not allowed to date. So I felt really behind. And I also started to feel like a little insecure about, not having that type of relationship in my life. I started looking for a relationship, and right there is the first mistake. When you start looking for a relationship, what ends up happening is you have such a narrow focus of what it is that you need. And in doing so, you end up dismissing a lot of things that could be really, really good for you. You just don't know you need them yet. So yes, I started looking for, that type of male attention when I was 14 years old. And the person who I found it from ended up being a pretty not so good person. And, we've talked about things since, cleared the air, and have come to some sort of understanding about how things went so poorly. But for the purpose of this conversation, I am going to shed some light on what I mean by it went bad. So at 14, I was looking for attention and I found it. And what came along with it that I never intended for was losing myself. I got so focused on having the attention that I did whatever I needed to do to keep it. Because of that, I ended up teaching that person that their attention meant so much to me that they could use it as leverage. So that's exactly what they did. So when they were going through whatever they were going through on their end, they would, I guess, take comfort in the fact that they had power over me, and whatever crappy situation they felt they were in, they would also put me in a similar experience just to make themselves feel better. And that often ends up happening. If you are not able to communicate hey, I'm hurting right now, what you'll end up doing is putting people in similar situations to be hurt, so now they know exactly how you feel. And that's not okay. You should definitely use your words. But yeah, this person was just not healthy, not a good person for me to be around. And it definitely skewed my view on relationships, and it made me put a guard up. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. Our early experiences dating as young teens, we made a lot of mistakes, we hurt a lot of people, and now we're at this stage in our life where we're recovering from a lot of stuff that we should have never gone through. And it's funny because I remember asking my mom, I want to date, all of my friends are dating, and she's like, you're not ready for that, you don't need to be concerned about that. And to me, I thought she was being a hater. I was like, no, lady, everybody else is going to the movies and going to the mall, and I'm sitting at home. No. And now that I'm on the other side of everything, I definitely see she was very wise for saying what she said. And I think the entire point of dating when you're ready is that when you're a certain age, you don't know what you're looking for. You don't know what you need. So you're going to walk into a lot more traps than you are into fields of green. You get it? So yeah, going back to the point. I genuinely feel at that point in his life, he was manipulative. He did his own healing, so he's not this person now. I'm talking about a younger version of him. But he was pretty manipulative, and just a...
Be nice.
I'm finding it.
It take you that long to find it?
It does.
Whew, it just put me through hell. I'll say that. Just put me through hell. That experience lasted about 3 years. I had a really, really hard time getting out of it because I had become so dependent on their attention. And I honestly was under the impression that if I don't get it from him, I'm not going to get it from anyone else, because it took me so long to just find it from somebody that I need to stick with what I know. And so my next serious relationship was college, freshman year. And if you're in college or if you've been to college, you just know hearing the word serious relationship and freshman put together, it's an oxymoron. It's just, what was I thinking, That relationship helped me bring my guard down, is what I will say. So it was good in that aspect that I really felt comfortable enough to bring my guard down. However, that bit me in the ass later down the line. But anyways, we were 18-year-olds finding ourselves. We were in this new environment in college, and we had all of this control of our decisions, and we were just learning. And I do feel like we learned a lot about each other. We were able to really share things about ourselves that, you don't ever imagine you would share with another person, let alone someone you just met in college. So yeah, that relationship was good for what it was. However, being that we were so early on in our college experience, for us, there was just no longevity there because the people who we were changing. And I do feel like he was changing faster than I was. And what I noticed was that I repeated a lot of the same behaviors with this college relationship that I'd done when I was 14. I poured so heavily into this person. I was more concerned with them than I was about myself. It got to the point where I was literally helping that man do study guides when I should have been studying myself. I got A's though. Let me just say that. I passed all those finals, but still, I was just so concerned with helping them that I would put my needs on the back burner. So yeah, that relationship ended because they wanted to pursue other options. And that's fair. You're young, you're in college, there's so much around you, so much within your reach that it makes sense that you would want to do that. So that relationship ended. I put my guard right back up because I allowed myself to get really vulnerable with this person, only for them to kind of just jump ship when they felt like they could do better. I know now that's not how you interpret a breakup. It has more to do with that person's needs than it has to do with anything about yourself. However, the girl I was at that time definitely took that breakup as you're not enough, you're not good enough, people will leave you, and you can't trust people. So I put my guard right back up. And I think for the rest of college, I kind of just stumbled through short-term relationships because I just wasn't in a place where I felt comfortable getting super close to anyone again. So yeah, I didn't date for the rest of college until the end of senior year. And y'all, what a time. So I met this person towards the end of my college experience, and I thought I've done healing, I've done all of these psychology classes, I know better now. No ma'am. That relationship was very confusing. It wasn't even really a relationship, to be fair. It was again, me doing more of the same, me finding someone, thinking that it was a good thing, and just being so narrow-minded about what was really going on because I thought I found a piece of happiness and I wanted to hold on to it. And yeah, that it ended up being so chaotic, so volatile, and it's sad because I really, really enjoyed that person, but they just weren't the person for me, and I was seeing so many signs of them not being the one, but I wasn't listening. And y'all, I am stubborn. I'm a real stubborn girl. There's this Jamaican saying, if you can't hear, you will feel. And that's exactly what happened to me. I couldn't hear my friends' warnings. I couldn't hear clear signs from the universe and from other people. So I had to feel it. And so that relationship went on for about maybe like 2 years before it just like finally expired. And, around the time it expired, I started my grad program. And like year 2 was when we started doing a lot of self as the therapist exercises. And that's really where you take the information you're learning and apply it to your own life, so that you're in a space to really do good work with your future clients. So when I started, going back through like relational dynamics and how people end up in the situations they find themselves in, what I noticed is that I have an insecure attachment style. And I do think that was a culmination of like early childhood experiences, but then compounded by the dating experiences I had, where people were disappointing me and people were hurting me. So I just kind of learned to expect more of that. So this is like 2018 now that I'm like putting 2 and 2 together, like, oh wow, I act this way and I end up in similar situations because of my attachment style. So yeah, I thought I did healing and I thought I worked on all of that. So I allowed myself to get into a relationship in 2020. And that's when I learned that like when you're alone, you can absolutely do healing in theory and a little bit in application too. But healing outside of a relationship kind of loses traction the moment you do get into one, because now you have to deal with someone else's behaviors. And a lot of the time that's going to force you into old habits, because it comes to mind quicker than the ones you worked on when you were healing. So I got into this relationship in 2020 and it ended up being pretty abusive. And fortunately, it wasn't physically abusive, but it was verbally abusive. It was to the point where this person was berating me, belittling me, yelling at me for really small inconveniences, and just like catastrophizing situations for really no reason. And me being the person that I am, I have these negative beliefs about myself to begin with. So I was reluctant to acknowledge no, this person is doing way too much and I don't deserve that. So I stayed longer than I should have. Fortunately, it was under a year. I stayed for maybe about 6 months before I was I need to put my foot down. I need to do something for me. I need to take care of me. So I left that relationship, and since then I've really taken a seat back from dating. And I know it's only been 3 years, but I've really taken a seat back from dating. I'm very reluctant to get to know people on that sort of level because of, one, past experiences, and two, I just don't trust myself yet because I'm still healing. I just don't trust myself enough yet to really stand firm in some of the new behaviors that I'm learning and some of the new affirmations that I've started giving to myself, as far as I'm worthy, I'm lovable, I'm enough, all of that. But I do think that relationship made me sit back and analyze a lot of, my responsibility in some of the relationships that I've allowed myself to be in. I recognize that I'm someone who is a giver. I am so concerned with making sure someone else feels happy, someone else feels loved, someone else feels fulfilled, that I give so much of myself. And when you're a giver, what ends up happening is that you are going to gravitate towards people who are takers, because you have something you want to give. So naturally, you need to find someone who wants to take and take as much as you give. But someone who takes as much as you give is a taker. And let me say this, because a lot of the time people do things unconsciously. So it's not like they wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm just going to take from this person because I want to. What happens in that case is that their past experiences have taught them more of how to be a taker than a giver. So they don't really have the skills for giving. It's not that they don't want to give, but they've just grown up in a role of a taker. That's their expertise. So that's the skill set they have. Most of my relationships have been with men who are takers. And not to say that that's that it was ever from malicious intent, although some of them, I do feel like it was malicious. I do.
But let me refocus.
Okay, y'all, so my camera died, so I had to stop and put this video away for some time now. It is now 2 o'clock. When I was recording the original video, it was like 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that. But anyway, what I was saying was that something that I learned in my program was complementarity. And basically that's a term that talks about relationships having this natural balance to them. You are going to gravitate towards people who don't clash with the person you are. So if you are an aggressive person, you are probably not going to align with another aggressive person. You guys will butt heads all the time. If you are a submissive person, you are not going to gravitate towards another submissive person because you are looking for someone to help guide you. And a submissive person doesn't offer that. So you are going to see opposites attract in that way. And you know, and sometimes it can be really helpful because, like I said, you are finding someone who offers resources you don't have, but it can also be harmful when you think about an aggressive person with someone who's more passive. So as a marriage and family therapist, I do work with couples because I work with parents. What I've noticed is that, you know, a lot of parents settle into these roles, not necessarily gender roles, even though that's a big thing too, but they settle into these roles where like maybe one person is doing like 75% and the other person's doing 25. Although that is complementarity because you're like, you together, you guys are a whole. What you also have is someone who is over functioning and someone who is under functioning. I'm going to talk about that in another video because I don't want this one to be too long. Wow. But the theme that I want to point out is pay attention to the person you are because you are going to attract someone who is your natural opposite. And something else that we learned in our program was that opposites do attract, but similarities are what keep people together. So yeah, looking back over my dating experiences, I definitely realized that I'd conditioned myself to be low maintenance. And because of that, I was gravitating towards people who wanted a low maintenance partner so that, you know, they could be more dominant in the relationship. And again, when I say these things, a lot of the time people aren't even aware that that's what they're doing. So I don't want it to come across as, oh, I'm bumping into all of these people who are malicious and have all this ill will and who wanted to abuse me. That's not usually the case. It's just that, you know, they've learned a certain set of skills to help them survive, and those are the ones they use. That's all any of us are doing, is just trying to survive. That's where all our behaviors are rooted in. Now that I've put, you know, 2 and 2 together about what my dating history said about me, I'm definitely a lot more cautious about dating. And pieces of that is rooted in being fearful avoidant. But then other pieces of that are rooted in the fact that I just want better for me. And until I, you know, really feel in my gut that the person who I'm talking to is better, you're not gonna get very far when you try to talk to me. That's just how it is right now. I think I'm just very much focused on self-care, self-love. You know, as a marriage and family therapist, I've definitely noticed that I tend to be a little bit more analytical of people that I'm dating. And I don't mean to do it, like I don't go into a date saying, like what behaviors do they have? But I am picking up on things that's giving me pause, and for good reason. Because usually what red flags you see at the beginning probably gonna amount to your demise towards the end. So pay attention, listen. There's no need for you to see a red flag more than once, honestly. So that's all for today's video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble about, I guess, my life as I'm trying to like give you guys insight into who I am and why I do what I do. Stay tuned for more videos. I'm going to be talking about some other concepts that I've learned in my program and I guess just learned throughout my own life experiences. And of course, I'm going to be making more things because it's kind of fun to create stuff, truthfully. So yeah, stay tuned, and again, thanks for watching. Bye! Okay, so some last messages that I want to leave you guys and then my 14-year-old self as well. You don't need to rush for love. You don't need to look for love. It will find you when it is your time. The more you rush, the more likely you are to come across a lesson, and sometimes those lessons can be deeply traumatic and end up being something that you're going to have to heal from for an extended period of time. So again, remember, everything has its time, and what's for you is for you, and it will find you when it's time. And then another thing that I would definitely, encourage you guys to remember is, the person you are is going to gravitate towards a certain type of person. We are all looking for our complement. And if there are things about yourself that you do not like or really bother you, that is a sign that there's some sort of insecurity there. Insecure attachment is not going to gravitate towards a secure attachment. So it is in your best interest to kind of work through some of the things that aren't, sitting so well with you, or things that you're not proud of, and reminding yourself that you are worthy, you are enough, you are deserving of love, because that's really going to prime you to be in a connection that's healthy for you, as opposed to depending on someone to offer you reassurance for things that shouldn't be their responsibility. And if you are asking someone to do something that shouldn't be their responsibility, you are giving them more power than you're meant to. And that can be very risky. So yeah, all in all, I hope you guys gained some insight from this conversation that we had, and yeah, stay tuned for more of my little chats. Hopefully I'll figure out a way to do this in one sitting so that my background and my lighting isn't constantly changing. But if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment below with something that stood out to you, or just anything to keep the conversation going around attachment styles, around dating, around self-love, self-care, all of that. I definitely want to start being more interactive with you all, so please leave a comment, like, subscribe, please, because really that's going to give me more motivation to keep going and producing this type of content. So yeah, see you guys in the next video.